Hello there. This is an episode of Now This Was Lit, which means it's an episode of Now This Is Lit that you may have already heard before. But if not, you get to hear it, maybe, for the first time. This miniseries will run through most of the summer, and it features interviews I've done in the past with Star Wars authors and creators. They're some of my favorites and some of the favorites of our Patreon community. So I really hope that you enjoy this interview from the past. It's like time travel, except not really, but we can pretend it is. Enjoy. This episode of Now This Is Lit is brought to you by Audible. Check the link in the description to get your first Star Wars audiobook free. Everyone loves free things. Click that link. Do it. This show is also brought to you by our patrons. If you want to support the show in a different way, with just $1 a month, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. You can get a sticker. You can get access to an exclusive show that we do every month that's wild and chaotic and fun and something you can only get by becoming a member of the Patreon. There'll be so many more perks very, very soon. But for now, do you want a sticker? Do you want a sticker that has an Now This Is Lit logo? Because it's fantastic and I love them. But I also want to give them away because there's just a stack of stickers on my desk. So if you want one, $1 a month. Patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Now This Is Lit, a podcast about Star Wars books, the people who make them, and the readers who just can't get enough of them. I'm your host, Meg Dowell. I use she, her pronouns. And making an emotional connection with the person that I'm interviewing is extremely important to me. Sometimes when you're sitting down with someone for an interview, you are successful in making that emotional connection, and sometimes you aren't, and that's not anyone's fault. It depends on a number of factors. What you talk about before you start recording, the questions you ask, the answers you base other questions off of as you're talking, the mood of both of you, the environment. A lot of things could determine whether or not me and an author like Stephen Barnes connect in a way that leads to a much deeper and more meaningful conversation. Whether or not that happens, as we talk about the last abyss and storytelling and the meaning of Star Wars, why don't you just listen and hear for yourself? You're here because you wrote a Star Wars book, which I think is very cool. Not your first one. You've written in Star Wars previously, but I did want to say welcome back. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
I like to ask authors this first question because I think the media we consume and the stories that we read and interact with are a huge influence on the things we write and the stories that we care about and the characters that we put in our stories. So I wanted to ask, before writing Star Wars, before kind of jumping into this universe as a writer, what were your previous interactions with Star Wars, or did you have a relationship with Star Wars in any way?
Sure. I mean, I've watched them all since the first movie.
Yeah.
I saw the first movie about 5 days after it opened, but I've seen all the rest of them on the first day. So I'm a fan. And I'm not as much of a fan as some of the people who were in New York Comic Con, but I always enjoyed it and always felt that it was an amazing mythos.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask kind of, having been a Star Wars fan and finally getting the chance to tell a story in that universe, how has being a Star Wars fan kind of shaped your storytelling just in general? You've written a lot of stories beyond Star Wars.
Well, I think that what one thing that I think I can point to clearly is that George Lucas used the model of the hero's journey very
Mm,
clearly in Star Wars. And as time went by, I began to use that, or actually my own slight modification of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey model to guide
mm,
my own writing and actually to guide aspects of my life. So I would say that Star Wars sensitized me to the hero's journey in a way because
mm.
he used it so clearly. I could see it so clearly in the structure
Yes.
of it. Um, that would be the largest thing.
Mm, yeah. As a storyteller, um, how do you approach? Because there's different kinds of storytelling, and with Star Wars specifically, when you're writing intellectual property, you are essentially playing in someone else's sandbox. You are oftentimes stepping in to write characters that someone else has created, but have maybe been in other stories, and now it's up to you to kind of take maybe what has come before or your own interpretation of these characters and kind of put them in your own story within that universe. And I wanted to ask you as a storyteller how you approach that with characters like Obi-Wan, with characters like Mace Windu.
Well, if you're writing about a character who has been written about by a dozen other people,
Mhm.
there's no there there. You
Yep.
know, it's there's no consistency. There's
Yep.
some apparent consistency, but there's no way a dozen people can write about the same character and still be
Yes.
talking about the same person.
Yes.
If you read a dozen biographies of an individual, you will see that each biographer has a slightly different interpretation, and that's based upon somebody who actually exists. So if it's a fictional character, if it's Batman, and hundreds of people have written about Batman, there's no there there. There's no actual
Mm,
congruence between the psychology and the actions and the emotions and the results. Each of those writers is doing the best they can,
mm,
but they don't really understand what it would take to be a Batman. We have no Batman, so
yeah.
all we have are fantasies about it. The same thing is going to be true in the Star Wars universe, that no matter how talented and how much integrity and how much caring the writers bring to it, each additional new person is giving their own interpretation of it,
Mm,
of a person that doesn't really exist in a sense. It's just how do you do this? So each of them is making it as realistic as possible based upon their view of what reality is and what people are.
mm,
Okay. So when I come to it, my primary job is to, while satisfying the editorial people and the Lucasfilm people, can I create something that's going to make the fans happy?
mm,
Can I create something that will do for them what they go to Star Wars for? So I have to kind of try to understand, why does Star Wars work? What is this about? And then to do that and be respectful of what the other creators have done, but not limited necessarily by what they have done.
mm.
Because
I
if I
think
do
it's
that,
always
what happens is the character becomes more and more and more generic and less and less connected to what real human beings are or what real creatures are, because I'm more concerned with what people said than what would be true. And I'm
mm,
much more interested in, well, what would be true about such a person? And all I can do is do the best job I can to answer that question, just like they did the best job they could. But if our perspectives are different, then ultimately, as an artist, I have to trust my own instincts. I have to figure, well, they came to me, so I assume that they wanted my take on what this would be, not somebody else's take. If they wanted somebody else's take, they would hire them. So
right.
you have to trust your voice, but at the same time, be aware that there's no way to get this exactly right. You can't do it. I mean, I couldn't do it if I was talking about a real person in real history. There'd still be people who disagreed with me. So ultimately, I have to be able to say, did the best I could.
I always think it's interesting, especially in Star Wars, seeing a lot of different authors come in to tell a lot of different stories with a lot of the same characters. everyone brings their own perspectives and life experiences into this fictional universe, and it shows. You can have characters that are the same character, and they're as consistent as they can be throughout different stories that different people have written, but it's a different character in the sense that no two people could ever write the same character the same way, because no two people are the same. No two people have lived the same life, seen the same things, taken the same things away
Yeah, I
from
mean,
other stories they've read or seen.
their sense of what the force would be, which is,
Mm.
like another fundamental, thermonuclear, law of thermodynamics, and like electricity or gravity. I mean, it exists in this universe. Their view of how that would work and how that would change the rest of reality and how people would react to it and so forth has to be influenced by their view of what the world is and their experience of being able to break that down into components that they can manipulate. No two people are going to look at that exactly the same way. They cannot. So, like I said, all you can do is the best you can do.
Mm. And you did that with Mace Windu in this book. Um,
I hope
and
so. I mean, I really cared. I really tried. You know,
it
you
shows.
I'm glad. I I don't take myself terribly seriously, but I take the work very seriously. And I took my obligation to the fans very seriously. And knowing that there was no way to get it perfect, I just decided to be as honest and direct as I could and try to tell a damn good story that had some reality about what I think Jedi would be and what the Force would be and what that universe would be like and how people moving within that universe would be. Um, I had to go from the inside out rather than from the outside in. So that meant, yes, I will absorb the movies over and over and over and over again. But I cannot be obliged to read every book that said something about Star Wars. There's hundreds of books, hundreds, thousands by this time, books and comic
Mm.
books and youth things and legends and on. You can't absorb all of that. And if you did, you'd have no life. Your work would not be about what human beings are. Your work would be about what people have written about human beings. And so therefore, it's one step removed from what creates quality in art, which is an original perception of what are people and what is the world they move through. It's a balancing act.
And in the story that you've told, we see, it Mace Windu is the focus. And many people who read this book will know already who Mace Windu is from the movies, probably most prominently, the shows, maybe, books, possibly. There's a lot that we learn about Mace Windu in this book, and there are a lot of interpretations of him that we get that we may never have gotten just from the movies, for example. A book allows you to do something a lot of times that movies can't do, which is go more in depth with a character, get inside their head, show you different things, show you how they view the world, what they're thinking about, how they see different things in characters and moments, and how that impacts them. Why do you think, because you wrote Mace Windu in a very specific way, why do you think it was important to the fans of Mace Windu, the Star Wars fans in general, to see the version of the character that you wrote for this book?
Because I don't think he'd been made into a human being. I think he'd been made into an icon. I think we had seen Mace Windu killing people and giving orders. But if you can't imagine him, I've said this, no, this scene is not in the book, but if you cannot imagine him dancing around his kitchen in his underwear making pancakes, you never actually thought of him as a human being. He was just this symbol. I've known exceptionally intelligent, accomplished, powerful people, and they have moments of full humanity and laughter, and they're goofballs at times when they're away from the people they have to command, when they're not wearing their war face. So the question of what is Mace Windu, my first task was to humanize him because that's what he is. He didn't come out of the womb being Mace Windu. He didn't come out of the womb being a Jedi Master, head of the council. He was a baby with the same developmental steps that other human beings go through. And I think that if you've never achieved mastery at anything in your life, then you don't understand what mastery is, let alone what mastery of something like the Force would be. You literally don't understand. So I think that if you haven't, it's easy to, instead of asking, well, what do people who really follow these paths, what do they like? What do they do? Instead of that, just, well, what have I seen on television? What have I seen in movies? What have I seen in books? Well, what if, if you're writing about somebody who is a fantastic athlete, Batman. Let's do that because that's a harmless aside. It's not talking about this. And you have never been an athlete. You're not going to understand what the price that a Batman would have to pay to be Batman physically. You're going to think, well, if I was rich, I could be Batman. That's nonsense. I know rich people. And they're not much fitter than average. I mean, so you show me a poor person who is a world-class athlete and they exist. Now I'll believe, maybe give that person $1 billion. Maybe that person could be Batman. But if you've never stepped into that arena, how would you know? Other than, you read, it's the equivalent of being bitten by a radioactive spider, rather than asking, how do you take the human stuff we are and become excellent with it? That has obsessed me my entire life. So if I am going to do this, then I have to bring everything I am. And what I am is all about the question, what is true? And who am I? So I had to bring those things to this, trusting that they knew what they were doing when they hired me. I can't be something other than what I am.
Exactly. That was one of the first things, actually, that I noticed when I was reading this book, because Mace Windu has always been an okay character to me, but never like my favorite, because he's very much depicted a specific way in the movies, let's just say. And I started reading this book and I was like, the Mace Windu, it has become a person to me, which I'd never seen him that way before. So reading this book, and I mean, he's cracking jokes, he's having emotional feelings toward droids who have lost their masters and don't know what to do. He's mourning the loss of a friend. He's a Jedi. But he's a person. He's a
Yeah,
human being.
if I can show you how arguably the most powerful human being in the entire Star Wars universe is still a human being, now I have created something that was worth the year of my life that it took to make it. When the check is cashed and the money is gone, all that's left is, did you do the work? Did you do the work? Did you care? Did you care about the hearts of the fans who were trusting you with something that's precious to them? If I feel that Mace Windu has never been made a three-dimensional human being, I can have a lot of opinions about why that might be true. Some of those opinions I would not say publicly in connection with promoting the book. And people who have read other things that I've written might be able to guess what some of those opinions are. But my task is to do the work, not to speculate.
And you can really tell when you're reading the book. This is a spoiler-free discussion, so there's not too much I can say to be specific about that, but it's, you're when you're going through the story, the care that you take, I'm just going to compliment you for a second because I think it's warranted. The care that you take to not only build out this new world, that we've never seen before, that he's spending time on and trying to understand and trying to figure out how to navigate. You're also building out this character just in a way that hasn't been done before. And I think that must have been I'll say, a daunting task to have this character who is depicted as so powerful and so um really cold and kind of just calling the shots, but seemingly not having these emotions. And here you come with this book where by the time we get to the end, you have created a character not just with emotions, but with an entire past that he has gone through the process of rediscovering and processing, and how that shapes his further actions. And by the time he gets back to sort of the location, at least where he started in the beginning, he's a completely different person, inside at least.
I think that we see him completely differently.
Mm, yep.
He understands himself better. He is he is a different person than the person you assumed he was, is the way I would look at that. Um, what happens on Metagos changes him, but I really do think it's more a matter of understanding his own nature. And I think that Qui-Gon Jinn, I'm also saying something about Qui-Gon Jinn and his wisdom and his understanding and his love for Mace that I think then allowed me to make some thoughts about what the Jedi Order and brotherhood and sisterhood would be like. These people who seem so alien to the outsiders, but to each other, they're just people because there are other people on the same level. So once everybody's at the same level, more or less, you're left with the well, what are your hopes and dreams? What do you care about? And I have to navigate that understanding that the more accurate I am about what a Mace Windu would be, and I'm not saying that I got it. I'm not saying I achieved it. I'm saying that I cared, that I tried. But I know that the closer I come to that, the more I'm going to alienate certain readers. But if I don't do that, then I am failing other readers. I'm failing all of my readers, really, but some people are hungry to ask the question, how do I become more? How do I grow? How do I change? I think that Star Wars has become what it is because it is saying that there is a hero inside you. And I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people were disturbed by midichlorians. The idea that no, you can't become a Jedi by giving everything that you have. No, you have to be born this way. And a lot of fans were not happy about that. That which was created by Lucas for his reasons, and here's a transcendent genius in some ways in terms of these things. I will not question that. That is the case. But that would be a lot like being smart or being tall. If you're tall, that's interesting. Now, show me how you play basketball. If you're smart, that's interesting. Now, show me what you do with your intelligence. I don't really care about your potential. Midichlorians would just be potential. What do you do with it? How do you shape yourself? Once a high midichlorian count is just the background of your life, how do you maximize your potential? Midichlorians or not, that question is still a valid one. So a heroic story should function to empty out the hero, to take them to a moment when everything they knew about themselves isn't enough, forces them to grow, because that's what happens to us as human beings. We go along, living systems crave homeostasis. We go along being who it is that we are until we meet a challenge that forces us to change. And if we don't accept that challenge, we deteriorate, we regress. If we do accept that challenge, then there's an aspect of us that dies. Our image of ourselves dies, and what we really are steps into the light. So that's what I was playing with here. Like I said, all I can offer is what do I think about these things? What have I experienced? What have the people who I trust in these pathways what have they said? How does that relate to the fiction about it? There are some things that Yoda said that are really, really good. Really, really good. You know, luminous beings are we, not this mere flesh. You can find parallels between that and many spiritual disciplines. They're all kind of saying the same thing, that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Star Wars is an aspect. If that is true, then that would explain one of the reasons why Star Wars has become so popular, because it is a secular approach to the question of spirit. It is within the context of a science fantasy adventure, rip roaring adventure. It is saying that your heart, your soul matters in the universe. I think that's an amazing lesson. It's an amazing perspective. And I think that that's why people have become hungry for such for adventures that take place in a universe in which individual human beings matter. I mean, wow. So I'm I'm very honored to have had the chance to do that. Like I said, I knew the job was dangerous when I took it, and I think they pretty much understood what they were hiring when they hired me. All I am is just this is just who I am. This is what I do. I totally understand if somebody doesn't want it, but if you hire me, you get me. And I will then do everything in my power to do something that is respectful of your needs and that remembers that ultimately the hearts of the fans are what matter.
I think there are Star Wars fans who maybe don't feel like they don't want to be challenged by a story, don't want to be challenged by Star Wars, don't want Star Wars to make them think deeper, don't want it to make them think about themselves and their own lives. But I think there are also plenty of people, and I'm one of the latter, who do like to read stories like yours, where yeah, we're thinking deeper about this character, but also kind of ourselves at the same time. Not only is our perception of how we saw this character change, but we're seeing this powerful, accomplished Jedi go through this entire transformation of he can still grow, he can still be something that he didn't know he could be before. And to
Yeah,
read us,
that's remember one of the critical steps of the hero's journey is the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is the doorway to growth. So if you read a story about a hero and the hero seems fully formed, what do you have to learn from that? You can't be Hercules.
yeah.
You can't because you can't go back and ask Zeus to be your father. But at the same time, on another level, everyone who ever heard a story of Hercules understood that the story is really talking about the Hercules within us. That within us there is an indomitable warrior spirit, just like there is a healer, and there is a lover, and there is a parent, and there is a teacher. That we have all these archetypical roles within us. A writer who can in storytelling in that way is the elders of the tribe talking to the young people of the tribe, saying, this is what life has been, and this is what life will be. To the degree that those stories contain some truth, that they nurture the people who hear them, those stories become our favorites. Those stories become the stories we want to hear over and over and over again because we need to remind ourselves what it is to walk this path called life. And there are so many people who are deluded about what it takes to grow up, to be a hero, to love. What is the truth of what it takes to develop a strong body? What is the truth of what it takes to develop a healthy relationship, a healthy family, to love yourself? What is true about financial success? I mean, just on the most basic level, we ask those questions. And I think that we are most attracted to the fiction that says something true about that, even if it says it in a fun form. You know, Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. There's a truth to that. We can feel that there's a truth to that. So you can build an entire character around something like that. And if you're traumatized in childhood, you can spend your entire life trying to undo that moment, to make the world different so that that moment didn't happen. You can look at Batman as being powered by that one moment when he made a request of his parents and it got them killed.
Mm.
What was the generative moment? I have asked many extremely successful people that question, and I've always been able to find a moment. If I dig deep enough, there is a moment at which they shifted, which they decided to shift themselves. So, given a high midichlorian count, if you also make the decision, then you have the chance of walking the path to become a Mace Windu. Take the midichlorians out of it, and we have the chance as individuals to have the courage, the force, the commitment, the leadership ability, the inspirational ability that Mace Windu has, and understand that we're watching an entertainment. We're reading the story of magic and dragons and wizards, but we're really asking, who am I and what is true?
You're just making me think so deeply about the world,
Well,
which I
if
love.
you that's okay as long as you remember to believe in yourself, to remember to believe that there is something precious inside you, that you're made of the same stuff as the stars. As long as you understand that you can grow, you can change, you can love, you can heal, then it's okay to say there is a path. But people who say there is a path and that there are many paths will run into people and be frightening to people who believe that there is no path, that there is no way out, that they're trapped by their lives. Um, and I think that George Lucas and storytellers at his level have been of benefit to humanity by saying, come with me, young man, come with me, young woman, and I will show you who you really are. I think that that's a sacred task of storytellers. And to be able to do that at the same time, you're just telling a rip-roaring story. That's the skill.
I'm going to ask you one more question.
Go
And
for it.
based on how our conversation has gone so far, I'm expecting you'll have a an interesting insightful answer for me. And it's a question I've only asked a few times. I just started asking it to people that I'm interviewing because I think um, people's responses to this question says a lot about them and their fandom and what Star Wars means. And that question is, when you hear the words Star Wars, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Star Destroyer cat crossing the top of the screen. We are entering a world of massive adventure. James Bond movies have to find a way to balance a threat that affects the entire world with a situation that is carefully balanced enough that a single human being can make a difference. Star Wars became Star Wars and something bigger and deeper than just another space fantasy. At the moment that Luke is in the trench on the Death Star, and I say the same thing every time. So it's John Williams' music is going boom, 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 and Grand Moff Tarkin is saying fire up the laser, and Carrie Fisher with the cinnamon buns on the side of her head is looking very pensive, and Luke's friends have been blown away, and it looks like all is lost, and Darth Vader is bearing down on him, and it's happening so fast. And you'd never seen special effects used like this before, and the music and the drama. Oh my God, you're in a new place. It's immersive, and it's future shock to the max. And in the midst of all of that, you hear Obi-Wan's voice saying, "Trust your feelings." That is the moment in which Star Wars became Star Wars. Your feelings matter. Who you are matters. Your hopes and dreams matter. The child inside you who started this life with so much hope and faith, and then got into the adult world and started selling off pieces of themselves to make paychecks. It's not too late to connect with the life force that you felt when you were a child. And when I look out at a room full of fans, I'm looking at people who've kept their enthusiasm, often against massive encouragement. Forget that stuff. Grow up, be an adult, give up your child self. No, you keep your child self, but then make your adult a badass Jedi. You make your adult someone who can protect that child, who can navigate the adult world, make the money, which is sales and marketing and production, that allows you to protect the little kid inside you. All of your life comes from that kid. All of your creativity comes from that kid. You have been lied to, says I, about who you are and what your potential is. And you must never let anyone shame you for your enthusiasms. Your enthusiasms are what continue to connect you to that child self. Just make sure that your adult is a badass Jedi. That makes it safe for your child to play.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
What is it that's happening, sweetheart?
Oh, just well, you and I could probably sit here and talk about life for 2, 3, 4 hours. We don't have time for that, but we could. Um, you just
And
have
people,
such
if you listen, if you like the way I'm talking about this, every Friday, sometimes on Saturdays, I do a free podcast, a free Zoom meeting where everybody's invited. If you'd like to get on that list, go to stephenbarneslist.com and sign up for it. I'm not joking about this stuff. If you hear me, whatever impression you have of me, that impression is probably going to grow if you got to know me more. In other words, if you think I'm an asshole, you're not going to change your mind. And if you think that I'm on a path that is genuinely pleasing to me, that I've genuinely created a life of meaning, as I interpret those things, and you would like to know more about, well, how do you really see this stuff? I'm delighted to share, because everything I know I got from other people, other men and women who were kind to me, who said, "You're confused, Steve, but you have some clarity about this one little thing over here. I can build on that. Let me teach you some things." The martial arts instructors and the meditation instructors and the writing instructors and people like that. God, I owe them everything. So I try to give away what they gave me, because what they gave me made my life. I've got that little boy and I've got that badass Jedi, and it's fun. I still get tired. I still have aches and pains and still wake up, feeling woozy. But then the first thing I do before I even get out of bed is smile to trigger the endorphins. And then I think, what can I do today that would make me happy? That the meaning of life is to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. So every day when I'm working on this book, escape suffering, sure, I got paid well for it. Embrace joy, I love writing. Be of service, these are people. Star Wars is about the heart. Star Trek is about the head more than anything else. I mean, it's about, science fiction is about, well, how does the universe work? Okay. But fantasy is more about, what is the human heart? So they're people who are looking to believe that they are still precious. So that's what I say to you, Meg, that in my eyes, you're precious. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. You're brilliant. That little girl that used to dance in the living room, and hopefully the aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and mother and father cheered for you. And then you get out into the world, you find out people don't cheer quite as much, because everybody has a dancing child inside them. How do I keep that dancing child and ask people for more money than the next dancing child got? What is that about? Is that selfish? Is it unrealistic? Is it this? Is it that? That's what the adult world does, but yet you have to navigate it. How do you navigate that world? How do you be a warrior in the world of your life to create a safe space for your child to dance? That has been my fight my entire life, sweetheart.
thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for coming here and talking to me, not just about Star Wars and books and Mace Windu, but about life and why it matters.
Well,
I
let me
think,
ask you one question. Let me ask you a
yes,
question. We can talk about the serious stuff,
Hmm.
but what people really want to know is, was the book fun? Did you think it was fun? Did you have a
Yes,
good time?
I did. I laughed. I read it so fast because I wanted to know what happened next. And every chapter was a new thing. And by the time I got to the end, I genuinely wanted to go back to the beginning and start over. So to
Cool.
answer your
When we're
question,
off, when
yes.
we're off the air, when you stop recording, I will tell you a
Mhm.
secret about the book.
Oh, okay. Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Um, oh, I love that. On that note, this has been so great. I'm so glad that we got to do it. And
I'm glad too, sweetheart.
yeah,
I want to thank you. You let me have a real conversation with you. We could have
of
kept it on
course.
the surface and that would have been just fine.
Mm,
Just fine. But you let me talk about what really matters to me.
mm,
And what really matters, that's the who am I and what is true, which
mm,
underlies, that's the emotional impulse that powers the work. The work. It's I when I was my first autographing, back when I was starting out my career, this older writer came to my autographing and gave me his business card. And it said his name, and then it said freelance hack and literary mechanic. And he was dead of alcoholism within 18 months. So I swore to myself I was never going to become that. I was always going to keep integrity with myself. No matter what happened in my career, I was going to tell the truth to the best of my ability, and I was going to be true to that little boy inside me who never stopped dreaming, and dreams still, and is delighted with his dad, is scarred up and battered and broken as that dad is in some ways. The little kid is safe, and that means that I have all the love within myself that I need to give love to the world with power. First, be safe. First, be sure you are safe. You have the right to fight like a demon or like a Jedi to protect your dreams and your heart. Once you've got that lined up, once you know that you will die before you let anybody hurt you, and all the predators need to know is that you will do whatever it takes to defend yourself, and they will go find a lesser victim. But you have to actually mean it. Once you have that, that little child inside you can just play. And that's all it was made for, was just play.
thank you, Stephen Barnes.
You're welcome, Meg.
Now This Is Lit is part of the Faraway Fandom Network. It is produced by Devor Mondam and written, hosted, and edited by me. Jose Jimenez designed our podcast art. You can keep up with the show on Substack and Now This Is Lit, and find the show wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many ways you can support the show, and all of those ways are linked in the show description. The newest way is to become a member of our Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get access to an exclusive show and a sticker. And if we get 500 people to support the Patreon per month, I can hire an editor. That would be great for me, and maybe for you too. So if you'd like to support the show with just $1 a month, you can do it that way. Or you can just keep listening and sharing the episodes. That is also helpful, and I appreciate it. For more book reviews and Star Wars Book Celebration, follow Star Wars Book Reviews on Instagram and TikTok.